Stop buying bad PSUs. Let's get you the best power supply for PC 2026. Buying the best power supply for PC in 2026, it's totally confusing. You gotta wade through a ton of weird terms like ATX 3.1, PCIe 5.1, 12-volt high power connectors, and more. And in 2026, you can't just buy an 80 plus gold rated unit anymore and call it good because those readings, they're garbage. Don't worry, this Best PC PSU 2026 buying guide will cover the basics of what you need to know and will make specific product recommendations for every budget level. If you get value out of this video, then please give it a like and of course subscribe for more cool PC content. Let's jump into it. All right, let's cover the basics quickly. The power supply, abbreviated PSU, comes in an ATX size that fits most builds and an SFX size for small form factor PCs. Now, most PSUs in 2026 are modular, meaning you can remove the cables on the PSU side, but cheaper units still have non-removable cables, and those are called non-modular. For modular PSUs, you should never mix and match cables with another PSU because on the PSU side here, these are specifically wired for the unit that they came with. And while cable extensions are a great way to add color or even RGB to your build, they need to plug into the original cables that came with the PSU, not into the PSU itself. Now here's a massive GPU troubleshooting point. I see so many people complain about their GPU or GPU drivers being bad because their PC crashes or black screens during gaming. Now, most of the time, it's not their GPU at all, but a power delivery issue and reseating the power cables with the PC turned off, obviously, and removing any third-party cable extensions, that often fixes the issue. So what are all these cables even for? Well, first, we've got the tried and true 8-pin PCIe GPU power cable. This is also referred to as a 6 plus 2-pin cable because in the old days, some GPUs would use a 6-pin connector and you'd need to separate the 2 pins off. This can make it a pain to plug in properly, so make sure you properly seat the cable before you plug it into your GPU. For GPUs, I recommend using one cable per connection for the first 2 8-pin plugs, then you can daisy chain the third one if your GPU requires that many. Some PSUs have 8-pin cables that are actually 2 cables in one, so if you have one of those, then it is okay to daisy chain as well. Next up is a controversial 12-volt high power cable, sometimes called the 16-pin. This has been the NVIDIA standard since the RTX 30 series, but most NVIDIA GPUs also come with adapters for older PSUs with only 8-pin connections. These cables have been prone to melting, particularly when they're bent too much near the connection point for either the PSU or the GPU. PSU maker Seasonic recommends not bending the 12-volt high power cable in the first 35 millimeters or 1.4 inches to make sure it's fully seated. Now, the pins for this adapter were redesigned to supposedly fix this issue. They're called 12-volt 2x6 and found on PSUs labeled ATX 3.1. For the main motherboard power, we have the 20 plus 4-pin adapter cable, also called the 24-pin cable. This powers your motherboard, plugs into the right side of the motherboard as well. The 4 plus 4 EPS power cable also supplies power to the motherboard. Typically, it plugs into the top left of the motherboard. Now, sometimes these cables have helpful connections to keep the 2 4-pin plugs together, just like this Seasonic 850 watt focus unit. Some motherboards do have additional connections for a second EPS cable, and while most motherboards will run with only one EPS cable attached, I recommend getting a PSU that has enough EPS cables for your motherboard. Then we've got the SATA power cables, which both power SATA drives, but also a lot of AIO pumps, fan and RGB controllers, and other devices. And you'll still find Molex power connections as well, though few devices use these any longer. So how do you buy a well-rated PSU that's gonna cleanly supply the power that your PC needs, but also protect it if something does go wrong? Now, basically, how do you avoid buying an exploding power supply? Well, first, ignore those 80 plus ratings because they're largely meaningless. We've seen gold power supplies explode while bronze ones go strong. And honestly, the power savings difference between even the lowest rating 80 plus white PSU and the best 80 plus titanium unit, it's actually very tiny. Now, instead, we focus on a list made by community experts in PSUs. They look at teardown reviews of all the units, they check the specs, and they determine the quality of the unit with a letter grade, with A being the best, and B being good, C being a budget unit. Anything below that you really want to avoid for a gaming PC. Now, these ratings are both for the quality of the components, the PSU power delivery design, the protections on the PSU that prevent it from blowing up, and how steady the power is supplied, something called ripple. The SPL PSU tier list is actively maintained as a public Google Sheet by lead author SPL and other experts from the Zach's Tech Turf Discord, so a big thank you to them. The SPL PSU tier list fully describes their methodology and contains a full listing by manufacturer for all units, where enough information is known to give a final grade. There's also a list of PSUs where they take a guess at the grades for PSUs without enough information. My recommendation, start with a list with proper recommendations. If you don't find it there, then check the larger list with speculative grades, though I really would like to buy something that has a proper grade to it. I've linked the list down in the video description for you to check out. So what tier list should you use for your next PC build or upgrade? Well, no matter what, I would never go below C tier, and I always prefer to get a better rated unit if the price is similar. At the budget build level, C tier, it's likely fine. As we go up in component power draw and the price of the system increases, we can think of going up a tier a little bit like insurance. So for mid-range price builds, I'd look for at least a B or A tier rated unit. At the high end, I would probably only use an A tier rated PSU, especially when using high power drawing parts, or if I'm intending to heavily overclock the CPU or the GPU. All right, but what is ATX 3.0, 3.1, PCIe 5.0, PCIe 5.1? What does all that mean for power supplies? Well, ATX and PCIe are standards for different computer parts, including power supplies. ATX 3.0 and PCIe 5.0 help power supplies handle sudden power spikes from GPUs and CPUs better. ATX 3.1 changed the 12-volt high power cable to a safer 2x6 pin design, helping to stop cables from melting. If you're buying an NVIDIA GPU, choosing an ATX 3.0 or later power supply is important. For AMD and Intel GPUs, this generally doesn't matter as they primarily use the 8-pin connections. How many watts does your PSU need? Well, in order to account for things like transient power spikes, where your GPU or CPU might draw several times its rated power over a very brief period of time, I recommend sizing your PSU at least 1.5 times the max rated draw in PC Part Picker. If my rated draw is 500 watts, then multiplying that by 1.5 gives you a 750 watt minimum PSU. Of course, bigger is totally fine as well. If you end up with a weird number like 715 watts, then I recommend just rounding up or down to the nearest 50 watt mark. In this case, 700 watts would likely be fine. For the vast majority of builds, this method usually results in recommending PSU wattages anywhere from 600 to 850 watts, with most of the rest covered by 1000 watt units and only a handful of current configurations requiring more than 1000 watts. From a cost perspective, it's a relatively small price difference for peace of mind. Let's jump into our specific product recommendations for Best PSU 2026, all of which are linked down in the video description. We're going to keep that list up to date, like things sell out or if new units come on the market. So check those links out for pricing and availability in your region. All right, Best PSU 2026, 1300 watts and higher. This is for big workstation setups. This is for insane gaming PC builds. And those cases out there that will do a dual system, these would be good PSUs for those as well. The 1600 watt and 1500 watts I'm going to show you have two 12-volt high power cables on them. And then the 1300 watt unit that I'm going to show you has just one, I see just one, but tons of other cable connections. These are all A+ tier rated in the SPL PSU tier list. By the way, there is an A+ rating. These are all best in class, essentially. ATX 3.1, PCIe 5.1. With all that out of the way, let me give you my two top picks here. The first is the Seasonic Prime TX 1600 watt. I think this is one of the best out there in the world, if not the best. I really like the overall construction of it. It's got a silent fan operation where you push a button on the back and you can actually have it turn off the fan at low power loads. That being said, the fan is pretty much very, very quiet anyway. I'm not sure you would really hear it. Tons of connections on this one. And one thing I really like about this, not only are the cables longer on this one, but they're also all individually braided and sleeved. Love that. Absolutely love that. Makes it so much easier to work with these cables over just like one big wad of cable that you really have to fight to bend it in any way. There's a 1600 watt unit of it for $532, and then we've got a 1300 watt unit for $479. I mean, I would spend the extra $60 personally, but it is already a lot of money. So maybe you go with this one instead. My other option here is the Corsair H1500i. This is a great one. Corsair's in their HX lineup has always been really, really good. One thing I want to point out with these high wattage PSUs, these are going to be longer than most of the other ATX PSUs that you're going to see. Just make sure they fit in your case. The one thing I like about this is it does, if you're up for this level of customization, there's a USB Type-C on the back. You plug that in. It plugs into a USB 2.0 header on your motherboard. And then what you can do is in iCUE, you can basically control everything about this. The fan curve, you can see a lot of information coming in. For some of you, I know that might be scary. You know, I don't want to screw anything up, right? I get that. So if this is not your cup of tea, great. But for those of you looking for the ultimate in customization, this would be a good unit. Let's jump into the best PSU 2026. These are going to be A-tier rated units, and these are going to be much more gaming system focused out there. Honestly, anybody with an RTX 5070 or higher or RX 9070 or higher GPU, I would probably grab one of these, especially if you're building on like a AM5 platform, something like that, higher end components to it. These are all going to be A-tier rated. And on top of that, they're all going to be ATX 3.1, PCIe 5.1, and I'm also layering in some additional requirements. They have to have at least 2 EPS power cables for higher end motherboards, and they have to have at least 3 6+2 pin PCIe GPU cables as well as the 12 volt high power cable. Let's jump into my top pick here. This is the ASRock Phantom Gaming, the PG lineup. So anything from 750, 850, and 1000 watt up to 1300 watts as well. Why is this one of my top picks for NVIDIA GPUs? Because they actually include a thermistor on the GPU cable itself for the 12 volt high power, because that 12 volt high power cable melting has been kind of the bane of its existence for NVIDIA GPUs. So this actually has a thermistor in it. If the temperature gets too high, it will shut the system down rather than allow it to melt. 2 thumbs up for that one. Overall, I like this one quite a bit. Pretty affordable as well. The cables, I think, ASRock, you could do a little bit of work on the motherboard cable on this. I think I told them that at CES. It's the kind of that thick style. Fine to work with in a build. The rest of them are absolutely fine in terms of the cable quality. $96 for the 750 watt unit is actually a pretty good price. ASRock also has their Steel Legend lineup, very similar in terms of overall specs to it. It just lacks the thermistor on the 12 volt high power cable. If you're building with an AMD GPU, then you don't care about that anyway. Maybe you want to save a little bit of money here. The only other thing I want to add in about this is in 2026, ASRock is going to introduce a version of this with white cables. Another great alternative here is the Lee & Lee Edge, A-tier rated for the gold units. And the gold units started to roll out kind of last year-ish. The platinum was a little bit before that. They seem to have gone out of stock. It seems like Lee & Lee is just kind of going all in on a lower cost version of this same platform where you don't plug the cables in to the side of the PSU. There's an actual plate that you plug them into. The only complaint I have about this is the fan then is on the top. So the fan's facing the wrong direction, or the cables are facing the wrong direction for a lot of bottom placement. But if you have a PC case with the side intake for the PSU, like a dual chamber case, this is actually really, really good for like the Antec C5 and other similar dual chamber cases out there. The other thing I want to point out about this particular PSU, the cables are all individually braided. Each of the strands is braided. That makes working with these so much easier than the ones where there's really thick wad or they're really plasticky to them. Absolutely love that. $99 for the 750 watt unit is pretty good price. Some other great alternatives here, the Be Quiet Pure Power 13M. Now I will say, unlike the 12M series, which I really loved, the 13M, only the 750, 850, and 1000 watt units are actually A-tier rated. Anything over that is B-tier, just FYI. But these are good units if you need between 750 and 1000 watts to them. Be Quiet does a really good job in terms of the fan and the fan noise. Actually has a passive fan operation, so it will turn the fan off at lower loads. In terms of the cables, it comes with 3 PCIe 6+2 pins, 2 thumbs up there. One of them you have to not use the 12 volt high power for. That's kind of standard though if you use a third one for like an RX 9070 XT GPU. Tons and tons of other cable connections to them. And they tend to be just a little bit longer on these, which I do like. Here's another one I love to recommend. This is the Montech Century 2. And I love this one because it is so insanely good value. Now I do want to note the 850 watt unit of this is actually a minus tier. They found in testing that the 3.3 volt and the 5 volt, those are the kind of the secondary rails. Remember, most of your power is coming in off the 12 volt rail. But the secondary rails, the overcurrent protection was set a little too high for their liking on them. That's why they got a small ding off there. But 850 watts for $89, pretty insane to get that level of protection. If you want the 1050 watt or 1200 watt, again, insane value, $109. And that one is fully A-tier, as is the 1200. I'm also going to throw the MSI Mag a GLS lineup in here as well, just to make sure that you have something in your market if you don't have any of the other ones or if they're higher priced. This is A- tier as well. Same issue that we had on the Montech 850 watt unit, slightly higher OCP on the secondary rails. Not that big a deal, to be quite honest. The good news on this one is they've overcome some of the screw ups that they had previously. The previous version of this, the fan noise was too high. And then on some of the other ones, they basically went all NVIDIA. You only got 12-volt high power cable and one PCIe connection. It was like, what if I want an AMD GPU? So they've kind of gone away from that. They've really fixed it with this particular lineup here. So you want the GLS at the end of it, 750 watt. I think we got 850, 1000 as well. The 650 is a little bit noisy. That's the only thing I have to say about it. Otherwise, they're pretty well priced. Let's jump into the best PSU 2026 B tier recommendations. What are we looking for here in the B tier? We want to save money. We want value. So we want a very similar feature set to what we got. The A tier, we understand these units aren't going to be quite as good, but we want to save some money or get something cool in exchange. Can I give you 3 here? The Vetru 850 watt unit is really cool because not only is it relatively cheap, it's $79 for 850 watt, you can get it in pink and you can get it in white as well. And it comes with pink or white cables. Really, really good pickup here, especially if you're looking to do a more color themed build. We've also got a great unit here from Sama. It comes in black, it comes white with black and white cables. 750 watts, this is the GT lineup. And look at that price, $69 for 750 watts, B tier rated. This is the kind of value that we're looking for here. You can, like I said, you can also get the white one for $69, insane value. Another one I want to highlight here is the Roswell VMG B tier rated. There's a 750 watt unit for $69. The 850 is only $75, and then the 1000 watt unit is $96. The reason I want to highlight this, many of you who built a gaming PC 8 or 10 years ago might recognize the Roswell name. This is Newegg's in-house brand, always known for pretty good quality and in terms of good value. They disappeared for a couple of years, but they seem like they're back starting last year. Fingers crossed they stay in the market because look at that value. Let's jump into the best PSU 2026 in the C tier. We're looking for minimum viable here. Let's go through. This is the cheapest unit that I can find that's C tier. ASRock Pro B650. This is kind of new. It came out last year. One limitation to it, I know $44. You're like, Jason, that's what I want right there, cheap. It only has one EPS cable. For most motherboards in the budget range, that's probably not an issue, but only has one 8-pin GPU. It's a 6+2 pin on it. So that might be a limitation for some GPUs out there, but most of them are all 8 pins. However, if you're looking for something that has additional connections and is only a couple bucks more, the Roswell VSB 650 watt ATX 3.1 to it. It has a 12-volt high power cable for NVIDIA GPUs. And on top of that, it has 2 EPS cables for all the motherboards out there and 2 6+2 pin PCIe GPU cables. Absolutely insane unit. For only $49, I would pick this up, and this is my top pick. Other notables here, Corsair CX 750M, 650M, often get well priced on sales right now, $59, $89 for 650, a little expensive, but pretty good C tier rated units if you can find them on a deal. From MSI, we got 2 units here. They've got the newer A-650 BE lineup, a 650 watt unit with 2 EPS power cables, and a couple of PCIe GPU cables as well. I absolutely love that. $59, not a bad price. Or the older lineup, especially for those of you in different regions out there, maybe this is what you have. This only has one EPS power cable, just FYI, but $52 is a pretty good price. And then we've got our old standby, the Apivia Prestige, 600 watt, $51. This is not ATX 3.0 though, just note that. It's still a pretty good unit. It's got pretty nice sleeve cables to it. If you're really kind of scraping around and you can't find any of those other units at a cheaper price, pick this up. All right, let's jump into the best SFX PSUs for small form factor builds out there. I'm just going to give you 4 quick picks. The first one is the cheap one. This is a B tier rated unit. All the rest are going to be A tier after this. The Vetru 850 watt SFX, $119. That's what we're looking for. Super cheap. The other good thing is it comes also in pink and white with pink or white cables. If that's interesting to you, although in most small form factor builds, you're probably not going to see the cables, but this is the one I would pick up if I just need something cheap. My top pick right here, if you want quality, is the Corsair SF850 and SF750. 750 you can get for $159. 850 is $178. You can also get a 1000 watt unit for $200. And the great thing about this is this has best-in-class performance in terms of all the protections, in terms of noise. Absolutely love it, and it's good form factor. It's not the longer size to it as well. It comes with plenty of GPU, EPS, and the 12-volt high power as well. Another good alternative here is the Asus ROG Loki SFX L. Just note the L stands for it's a little bit longer than the standard SFX. Just make sure it's going to fit in your small form factor case. I like the price on it though. $144 is a pretty good price. This is for the 750 watt unit. There's also an 850 1000 watt unit as well. You can also consider the Cooler Master units. They have come down in price. They had a little bit of an issue with the 12-volt high power cable. They used right angle ones. Didn't always fit into all of the NVIDIA GPUs out there. They're going away from that. The current ones should have just a regular plug one. However, if you're looking for one for an AMD GPU, then you don't care about that. And these are pretty cheap for 850 watt unit. Remember, everything is linked down in the video description. Check those out for current pricing and availability in your region. And we will keep that list updated as things either go out of stock or new PSUs come on the market. If you got value out of this video, please give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe for more cool PC content. And we'll catch you on the next one.